and Lorraine Warren are best known for their involvement in the investigation of the Amityville case in New York. The events in this case inspired the book and the movies, The Amityville Horror. The Amityville case has been highly scrutinized by many members of the paranormal investigation field. Some even claim the whole event was other notable investigations include the exorcism of a werewolf demon in 1983, their testimony in the demon murder trial in 1981, and the Smurl family haunting in Pennsylvania in 1989. The Smurl family claimed that their paranormal activity began in 1974 when a television burst into flames. Come on in. This is actually my mom and my little brother here.
Oh, hello.
And like I said, Lorraine is still around, and she has appeared in many television series, several television shows, including Discovery Channel's The Haunting, Paranormal State, which she's been on a few times now, and with her husband on Scariest Places on Earth. We're going to move on here. Another huge influence in this research is Hans Holzer. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of his stuff.
Yep, I've had quite a bit of his books, and of course, reading most of his books kind of helped me kind of gain a base of what a paranormal researcher is. Most people actually call him the grandfather of ghost busting or ghost hunters and paranormal researchers. Hans Holzer, born January 26, 1920, died April 26, 2009, very, very recently. Actually, I got a chance to talk with his daughter, who's also now a famous ghost hunter and a medium. She lives in New York right now. He was an Austrian-born, American pioneering paranormal researcher and author. He wrote well over 100 books on supernatural and occult subjects for the popular market, as well as several plays, musicals, films, and documentaries, and hosted a television show, The Ghost Hunter. I got to see a clip of it before, but I've never totally seen that show. He was also involved in the investigations of the Amityville horror case. There's actually many others who were involved in that. In January 1977, Holzer and spiritualist medium Ethel Myers entered 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, New York. Myers claimed that the house had been built over ancient Native American burial ground, and that angry spirits of the Shinnecock Indian chief, Rolling Thunders, had possessed the previous occupant, Ronald Deffield Jr., driving him to murder his family. That's a little bit on Hans Holzer there. Another influence, and just so people haven't noticed, we're kind of going into the beginning of some of the early researchers going into now, which at this point would be more or less into the 1960s and 70s, so we're kind of catching up with what's happening now. James Randi, I don't know if anyone has heard of James Randi at all. Yes, no, maybe so? James Randi, born August 7, 1928, is a Canadian-American stage magician, another magician, another stage performer that got into this field, and he's basically a scientific skeptic. He's the founder of the James Randi Educational Foundation, and this was actually one of the experiments that I was bringing up earlier. Randi entered the international spotlight in 1972 when he publicly challenged the claims of Uri Geller. I don't know if anyone remembers Uri Geller, but he was made famous for bending spoons. Randi accused Geller for being nothing more than a charlatan and a fraud who used standard magic tricks to accomplish his allegedly paranormal feats. And he supported his claims in the book, The Truth About Uri Geller. Geller was unsuccessfully sued Randi for $15 million in 1991. And he's still alive now. You can actually watch a great TED Talks interview, but a presentation with James Randi. And of course, a lot of this you can find on YouTube or TEDTalks.com. Another huge influence during this time actually would be more or less the starter of parapsychology was Joseph Banks Ryan. A lot of my information, actually I have a book right over here. And of course, when we're all done, you guys go ahead and take a look at some of this. This is actually more of our influence. But this book right here talks a lot about, parapsychology, the controversial science. Talks a lot about J.B. Ryan because, once again, he was the, kind of like the founding father of parapsychology. That book itself goes into a great history and kind of talks about a little bit what I'm talking about right now. He was a botanist who was later developed into interest in parapsychology and psychology. Ryan founded the Parapsychology Lab at Duke University, the Journal of Parapsychology, and the Foundation of Research on the Nature of Man. He also initiated the Parapsychological Association. The most famous series of experiments from Ryan's laboratory is arguably the ESP test, which is what he coined, involving a Hubert Pierce and a J.G. Pratt, research assistants. Pierce was tested using Zener cards, and if you know what they are, they're basically cards that have different shapes, triangles, wavy lines, stars, and so on. Pierce was tested using Zener cards by Pratt, who shuffled and recorded the order of the cards in the parapsychology lab 100 yards from where Pierce was sitting in a campus library cubicle. The series comprised of 37 25 trial runs conducted between August 1933 and March 1934. In 1934, drawing upon several years of lab research and statistical analysis, Ryan published the first edition of a book titled Extrasensory Perception, which is which in various editions was widely read over for the next decades. In the later 1930s, Ryan investigated psychokinesis, again reducing the subject to simple terms that it could be tested with controls in a laboratory setting. Psychokinesis, if people don't know, is actually when you're able to move things with your mind. Ryan relied on testing whether a subject could influence the outcome of tossed dice, initially with hand-thrown dice, later with dice thrown from a cup, and finally with a machine-throwing dice. In the 1940s, Ryan co-authored with J.G. Pratt and other associates at the Duke Extrasensory Perception after 60 years. A review of all experiment studies of telepathy and clairvoyance that they could identify in scientific journals and other published sources has been recognized as the first meta-analysis in the history of science. In the course of reviewing their methods and findings, they rated the studies on evidence, examined hypotheses other than ESP, and discussed what generalizations might be drawn from them. Additionally, as many of those persons and possible people who have published criticism on the research were sent drafts of the book and invited to offer their comments for publication within it. Only 3 took up the offer, of which 1 maintained an adamant criticism. In the early 1960s, Ryan left Duke and founded the Institute of Parapsychology, which later became the foundation for research of the nature of man in the 1970s. Ryan, along with William McDougall, introduced the term parapsychology, translated from a German term coined by Max Dossier. It is sometimes said that Ryan almost single-handedly developed the methodology and concepts of parapsychology as a form of experimental psychology. During the war years, Ryan lost most of his male staff members to war work or the military. This caused something of a hiatus in the conduct of his new research, but the opportunity was taken to publish the large backlog of experiments that since the early 1930s have been conducted on psychokinesis. Once again, it's dealing with moving objects with your mind. After the war, he had occasion to study some dramatic cases outside of that. Ryan's wife, Dr. Louisa Ryan, pursued work that complemented her husband's in the later 1940s, gathering information on spontaneous ESP reports, experiences people had outside of a laboratory setting. Yet J.B. Ryan believed that a good groundwork should be laid in the lab so that the scientific community might take parapsychology seriously. Ryan founded the institutions necessary for parapsychology, continuing popularization in the U.S., including the establishment of the Journal of Parapsychology and the formation of Parapsychological Association, and also the foundation of the Nature of Man. A precursor was today known as the Ryan Research Center. His parapsychology research organization was originally affiliated with Duke University, but is now separated.